Have you ever wished you could live in the mountains but still drive to the beach in just under 80 minutes? What about being able to eat apple pie every single day without being judged for it? Well, there's a town where this isn't just a dream, it's reality. It's Julian, California, and it sits just on the eastern edge of San Diego County. And in this video, we're going to cover the top things you should know about Julian, whether you're deciding to make a move here or if you're just visiting for the weekend. But before we jump in, my name is Ryan Stuver, your go-to real estate resource here in San Diego. If you have any additional questions regarding anything we talk about in this video, please feel free to contact me at the email below. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. Now, let's talk about Julian. Before we cover anything else in this video, I first want to clarify where Julian's location is within San Diego. So Julian sits just on the eastern edge of San Diego County, high up in the Cuyamaca Mountains on the eastern side of the mountain range, right before you drop back down into the desert. And sitting at 4,200 feet in elevation, Julian is pretty high up, so expect the UV rays to be more intense here, especially in the summer, and you should expect some occasional light snowfall in the winter. And as I briefly mentioned in the intro to this video, Julian sits only 60 miles from downtown San Diego, putting you roughly 60 to 80 minutes from downtown San Diego or any beaches throughout the county. Plus, with the desert being just over the eastern ridge of the Cuyamaca Mountains, Julian is only a 40 to 60 minute drive to places like Ocotillo Wells and Anza Borrego, giving you easy access to overnight desert camping and plenty of places to go off-roading. Making Julian's location really unique, as you have the ability to access the beaches, downtown, or the desert all within roughly 60 minutes. Now that we understand where Julian's location is, I want to quickly discuss what you should expect to pay if you want to purchase a home here. Since Julian is a rural mountain community, housing prices tend to be much more affordable here, especially when compared to the majority of San Diego County. And looking at the most recent local market update for Julian, as of October of 2025, the median sales price for a single-family home here is $751,250, which is $148,750 below the county median of $900,000. So if you're comfortable living the quiet mountain lifestyle, you could certainly save a decent amount of money by purchasing a home in Julian. And since there aren't any condo or townhome sales to report, I want to shift our focus now to what you can actually expect to do here, whether you live in Julian or if you're just visiting for the weekend. The interesting thing about Julian is because it's such a small town, many people, including myself, tend to group the smaller towns you pass through along the way to get to Julian as part of the overall experience. And because of this, I'm going to include two additional towns in this section of the video, which are Santa Ysabel and Wynola. And we'll talk about them in the order in which you pass through them on your way to Julian, starting with Santa Ysabel. Santa Ysabel is a pretty small town, even in comparison to Julian, with what you would consider its main street only being about half the size of Julian's. And Santa Ysabel's most famous destination is Dudley's Bakery. This bakery has become almost synonymous with this small town and is arguably one of the most popular places to stop at on your way up to Julian. And Dudley's is famous for its freshly baked breads, its homemade pastries, sandwiches, and coffee. And aside from Dudley's Bakery, there is a few other small shops and stores that can be fun to check out, like Ollie and Oak Antiques, Santa Ysabel General Store and Antiques, plus every Saturday and Sunday there is a farmer's market from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., which does tend to be on the smaller side, but it can be fun to make a stop at if you are passing through town. And as an added bonus, there are a couple fairly unique experiences you can have in Santa Ysabel, first of which is making a stop at the Oasis Camel Dairy and Foundation, just off of Highway 78 on your way to Santa Ysabel from Ramona. And there's a few things to do at Oasis, first of which is go take a tour of their farm. You can go feed camels or even ride camels if you like. Plus in the summer, they have large lavender fields that open up to the public for anyone to come wander around in and enjoy. And to answer the most obvious question at this point, unfortunately no, you cannot buy camel milk directly from the Oasis dairy due to state regulation, but they do sell various other camel milk products on site like soaps and lotions if you're interested in that at all. And for anyone who wants to know more information about the Oasis dairy or for further information about pricing for tours or camel feeding, I'm going to leave their link to their website in the video description below. And the other unique experience in Santa Ysabel worth mentioning is the Judith A. Bassett Candid Education and Conservation Center, or the JABCECC for short. This is a fox sanctuary where you can participate in seminars and workshops to experience foxes firsthand. And unfortunately, I haven't been myself, but just like the Oasis Dairy Farm, I'm going to leave a link to their website in the video description so you can learn more if you're interested. So that's pretty much going to wrap up Santa Ysabel, but there is one last thing I want to mention before we move on to Wynola. Santa Ysabel is home to the Julian Pie Company headquarters, which means their primary bakery is located here, which might not mean a lot right now, but you'll see in a few minutes why it's important to note. And just a little further up the 78 highway, you'll quickly come across the second of our two small towns, which is Wynola. There's a few places worth mentioning in Wynola, first of which is the Barn Vintage Marketplace, which is on the right side of the 78 highway as you're pulling into town. This store sells a lot of cool artisan handmade crafts, but for me, the real showstopper here are the two emus that take up residence in the parking lot. As it's always free to see them, and even if the store is closed, you can still drive in and say hello. But emus aside, once you're actually in the town of Wynola, there's plenty of restaurants and shops to go explore, like the headquarters for Mom's Pie Shop, the Cooler, which is a brewery, the Julian Mining Company, which is a great place to take some kids if you have any, Hero's Restaurant, which makes some great pizza, Julian Farm and Orchard, where you can actually go apple picking when apples are in season, and a personal favorite of mine, Calico's Cidery. So that's the gist of Wynola. Now, let's finally shift our focus over to Julian. Lastly, we arrive at Julian, which is the largest of the three towns, and if you've never been here, it's worth noting that when you come into town off Highway 78, you go right into a stop sign, and there aren't any traffic lights in downtown Julian, which may not seem significant at first, but if you've been here during any busy season, you know that Highway 78 can really back up depending on how busy it is due to the stop sign. And downtown Julian itself is essentially comprised of one main street that's surrounded by restaurants and shops on either side. And there's plenty of cool places to check out in downtown Julian. I want to start first by talking about a few restaurants, and you have places like De Los Altos Restaurant, Romano's Restaurant, the Julian Cafe, the Apple Alley Bakery, Miner's Diner, the Purple Owl Cafe, and the Julian Beer Company. Now, if you're not really hungry and you're looking more for a light snack, a sweet treat, or some souvenirs, you have plenty of other stores like the Julian Cider Mill, which is a cidery and a candy store, the Julian Candy Basket, Quinn Knives, the Old Julian Garage, the Warm Hearth, and the Old Julian Bookhouse. And if you're visiting Julian, it's almost sacrilegious to leave without buying any apple pie. And in downtown, you really have two main choices for apple pie, either Mom's Pie Shop or the Julian Pie Company. And I would definitely recommend going there first or getting to either of these pie shops early, as if you go during peak season or on a weekend, the lines can get really long, and I've actually seen them stretch the entirety of Main Street before. But if you don't get into town early enough, and the lines at the pie shops are too long and you don't feel like waiting, don't worry, you still have a chance to get apple pie on your way home. Remember earlier when I mentioned we'd circle back to the Julian Pie Company down in Santa Ysabel? Santa Ysabel is home to the Julian Pie Company headquarters, which means their primary bakery is located here, which might not mean a lot right now, but you'll see in a few minutes why it's important to note. Well, now's that time. You can still go enjoy your entire day in Julian, and on your way back down the mountain, you can either stop at the Mom's Pie Shop headquarters in Wynola or the Julian Pie Company headquarters in Santa Ysabel, and these shops will typically have little to no line, allowing you to still get that Julian apple pie experience you came for. And if you're looking for things to do outside of downtown Julian, there are plenty of cool hiking trails and campgrounds to explore. Starting first with hiking trails, you have places like Three Sisters Falls, Five Oaks Trail, Red-Tailed Roost, and Granite Peak Trail, just to name a few. And some cool campgrounds we're checking out include William Heiss County Park, Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, Paso Picacho Campground, and Green Valley Campground. So that covers my list of things to do in Julian. Now I want to briefly discuss what you should expect life to be like if you want to live in Julian. So if you want to live in Julian, this may seem obvious, but you should certainly expect a much slower paced life, especially with a population of roughly only 1,400 people. And what's probably the biggest and most jarring change about moving to Julian is the lack of convenience and services available to you when you live here. For example, the closest grocery store is about a 40-minute drive back down the mountain into what you would consider to be the closest big city, which is Ramona. And with the Cuyamaca mountain range being a high desert mountain range, you should expect a large contrast in weather throughout the year, with winter temperatures dropping below freezing and even seeing some light snow during the winter, whereas in the summer, you'll see temperatures rise into the triple digits and a UV index of 12. And lastly, this is a mountain community, so you should expect to see and live amongst plenty of wildlife, like wild turkeys, deer, mountain lions, bobcats, skunks, owls, hawks, and plenty more I'm sure I'm forgetting, making it really important to be prepared and aware when you're driving on roads early in the morning or at night. Julian is also a dark sky community because of the Palomar Observatory being located close by. So outside of downtown Julian, there were almost no streetlights, so you should expect it to get really dark at night. So I want to wrap this up by saying I think Julian's a really cool place to live, as long as you have a job that allows you to live here and you're comfortable with the slower paced lifestyle. It's also a really fun place to visit over the weekend for any locals or anyone out of town was looking to do some apple picking, hiking, camping, or just to simply eat some apple pie. But enough what I think, I would love to know what you think. Would you visit Julian? Was there anything I didn't talk about that you wish I had? What's your favorite type of pie? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. And again, my name is Ryan Stuver. If you have any additional questions about anything I covered in this video, the real estate market in general, or any of my team's current or upcoming listings, feel free to contact me at the phone number or email below. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!